All right, now let's drill down on the December inflation numbers now with Damilola Akimbami, Head of Research, Financial Derivatives Company. Great to have you. Good morning.
Good morning, Ladi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're talking earlier, and I asked you, what was your earlier prediction for December?
We're actually projecting a deceleration
Exactly.
to 14.9, but we were wrong in our forecast.
Yeah.
Yes. Because we were anticipating that the impact of the consumer price resistance and seasonalities, because a period under review fell under the harvest season.
Right.
So we expected an increased supply of commodities, plus the fact that disposable income is sharply lower, that those factors will be more than sufficient to offset the price stoking factors, such as the exchange rate pass-through, such as, more importantly, the demand increase in demand that is tied to the festive season. Because if you look at previous years, 2018, 2019, and even 2020, typically there's always an increase in the month of December, because in December, obviously, we have the year-end activities, events, weddings, so you have increased spending during that period. And then there's still the underlying factors, such as insecurity that is yet to be addressed, logistics issues. And again, because of this holiday season, we always see increased demand for travel. People are going home to spend time with family. So these factors typically would increase the cost of these commodities, cost of transport. So definitely the cost push factors and inflation stoking factors, the impact of such outweighed what we were looking at from the harvest aspect.
Meanwhile, you see the food inflation, which is the biggest worry
driver.
for the poor, rose from 17.21 in November to about 17.37%. Should we be worried here?
Oh, we should be worried. I mean, it just further underlines what is driving inflation right now in Nigeria. I mean, if you go to the market right now, most commodity prices are still elevated, despite the fact that we're just rounding up the harvest season, where you should expect increased supply. So, for instance, take like a bag of rice now, the price has increased from about 28,000 to 30,000 naira a bag. So, definitely it's something to be concerned about. More importantly, because, like I mentioned earlier, one of the factors, insecurity, which is predominant in the food producing belt, that is yet to be addressed, and definitely that would feed into, or that is affecting food inflation. Also, we have issues ranging from storage, distribution, supply chain disruptions, and more importantly, even what is happening in the global economy. We know that global inflation is rising. In fact, this is the first time that Nigeria's inflationary trend would move in tandem with what is happening globally. We know that the US recorded a 39-year high inflation rate in December of 7%. And if you even look at some of our African peers, so the likes of Ghana, Angola, Uganda, they also recorded an increase in the inflation rate, and the predominant driver is still food prices, food inflation, because again, most countries are yet to recover from the pandemic effect. So most economies are just reopening, and we know that there are still shortages everywhere. If the global economy is recording inflationary pressures, obviously the spillover effect through imported inflation would affect the food basket of these countries, such as Nigeria.
And, inflationary pressures remain a major, concern for stakeholders, in the economy. What can be done to actually tame this rise in inflation?
Well, the government has come up with so many plans and measures. We know that, like, for instance, today they're launching the rice pyramid. So obviously there's that increased focus by the government to try and boost the output of the agricultural sector by investing in it, whether in terms of fund, in terms of infrastructure. We know that that sector the agricultural sector contributes about 30% to overall output produced in Nigeria, but the sector is still growing at about 1.2%, so there's still that disconnect. That sector is the largest employer of labor. So it's a very important sector, and we've seen that there are a lot of government reforms being put in place. Even from the CBN monetary policy aspect, we know that the CBN, the Anchor Borrowers Program of the CBN2 has been targeted towards growing or boosting productivity and output of some of these commonly consumed commodities like rice, maize, cassava, and whatever. So we're seeing a lot of that. But also you have to look at the value chain of the agricultural sector. So from processing, storage, and packaging, there's so much untapped potentials, opportunities are yet to be developed. The government needs to look into that because we have a lot of post-harvest losses, which is one of the factors that actually affects the output of the agricultural sector. So even if you are growing, you've increased your production, but you can't, when it's time to harvest, you lose most of it due to poor storage facilities or whatever. Take, for instance, tomatoes now. By the time you're transporting it from the north to the south, because it's a perishable commodity, and if you don't have the adequate storage facilities in place, if you have distribution networks, issues, for instance, bottlenecks, there are challenges, transport and travel bottlenecks, these commodities would get spoiled before they get to the market.
Why aren't we seeing more investment in, storage facilities at this time, seeing that it's a big problem?
I think we're beginning to see that investment, maybe not enough, because definitely, it's not something that just came up out of the blues. Everyone already knew that, yes, one of the things you need to invest in, especially for the agri sector, is storage.
Like, since I was in secondary school, storage has been an issue.
Yeah, so it just shows that we're not investing enough. That's just it. And we need to ramp up whatever efforts we are putting in to ensure that we have adequate storage facilities. Even back in school, we used to talk about archaic equipment being used for our farming. We still use it. So it's not as if that doesn't mean that we haven't invested in the necessary infrastructure or equipment, but it's just that it's not enough and we need to do more. So I think that's just the issue right now.
Right. Talking about this, the rice unveiling of the rice pyramid in Abuja today. Yes. What can we expect, what impact can we expect from this, talking about the price of rice?
Well, first of all, a laudable event and achievement by the government and by the CBN also, because it comes under the CBN's Anchors Borrowers Program. That program has also been able to generate significant job opportunities, so at least that would help to address the unemployment issue in Nigeria. And from the report from the president of the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, that Nigeria is now the largest rice producer in Africa, and we're also the largest consumer of rice. So
quite interesting.
Yeah, quite interesting. And also, according to the president, we are rice sufficient, and most likely we'll start to export rice. Maybe we haven't said exporting, but I don't think in significant quantum, because at least if you look at the Q3 foreign trade report of the National Bureau of Statistics that was released earlier, rice was not mentioned amongst our top at least 5 to 10 commodities. And again, you have to have the comparative and competitive advantage to be able to trade and compete effectively in the international market. The quality of the rice that we produce, can it compete with the quality of the likes of Uncle Ben and other internationally known rice that are being sold both in Nigeria and outside the country? So these are some of the things we need to look at. So definitely laudable, but again, there's still work to be done. We need to address the value chain issues, challenges. We need to address and tap into the opportunities so that we go from being rice sufficient to actually exporting and even broadening our revenue base. So, imagine if we can start generating more export earnings, more forex from rice.
In dire need of,
and we know we still import rice to an extent, despite the fact that it's supposedly banned and all that. So, imagine if we can start exporting it, we stop importing it, we reduce our import bill. It's something that needs to be looked into.
Yeah, very, very, very important. But what else is happening with other domestic commodities right now?
Well, what we've seen is that the price decline, because in January, because it's a slow month, so typically you expect that commodity prices should start to decline or trickle down. But we're yet to see that occur in most commodities. So most commodities are still relatively flat. One, it could be attributed to the fact that a lot of the farmers are yet to return from their villages, and that could affect supply, and also low disposable income. After a supposedly dirty December, yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes, disposable income, yes, the reality sets in. So I believe that by the time we enter February, we start to see, we start to get a better and clearer picture of the commodities market. And bear in mind that we're going to enter the planting season. And once the planting season commences, that would affect supply, which will lead to shortages. And we could see these commodities start to, the prices record a higher increase.
All right, another issue now is the powerhouse. China's economy rebounded in 2021, but there's signs the momentum is actually slowing. Should we be concerned about that?
Oh, well, for China China is one of the largest economies, and so it's very important with in terms of trade, in terms of foreign aid, especially for emerging and frontier markets like Nigeria. So what it just shows you that, okay, that momentum is slowing, but then still, and again, they're maybe slowly and gradually getting to the pre-COVID levels. But again, there are still issues. We talked about supply and chain disruptions. We know that last year there was a point where China and Europe are experiencing some energy crisis. And again, what is even happening right now in terms of between Russia and Ukraine and with the US and the NATO.
And the energy crisis
the
is
energy
still
crisis,
on.
yes, exactly, it is still on. So definitely, these are some of the things that are going to affect the Chinese economy. And even bear in mind, so a lot of global economies now, including China, what they are beginning to do now, they're going to start to increase interest rates in 2022. We know that a lot of global central banks, the US Fed has mentioned it, the Bank of England last year increased its interest rate by 15 basis points. So they're going to start to do that when or once they can comfortably say that, yes, this recovery is on a steady path. And what that means is once we start to see global interest rates start to increase, the dollar is going to strengthen, which means for commodities that are priced in dollars, they become more expensive to purchase and the demand is affected, and we will start to see the prices of these commodities to fall. So for China, major economy, we shouldn't worry too much about it, but we should be concerned because if it's an indication of the fact that they're not producing as much, and because China accounts for about 30% of Nigeria's total trade, if China is not producing as much, it could lead to supply shortages, which again is inflationary and would affect Nigeria.
Quite interesting. And I saw that see the stock market dipped again, 0.12. You know, we had that New Year rally, but it seems to be
well,
down.
Yesterday's one can be attributed to the inflation numbers which were released yesterday. I mean, they were released in the morning, so the market was able to react to it because the fact that inflation numbers increased, so there basically has just increased the possibility of a rate tightening in the Monetary Policy Committee meeting that is going to hold next week. And if interest rates increase, then obviously we're going to see a shift away from the equities market to fixed income instruments. So that could possibly explain why we saw that marginal. It was 0.12%. That's not too
because I was
significant.
Expecting more grains and with boer foods actually.
Yes, exactly.
Tanking
yes,
the market.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's look at agricultural, commodities now. What's happening in that space?
Yes, we've already talked about the domestic market. So for the global market, for the grains, so that's wheat and corn. So for wheat, we're seeing a decline in price due to increased global supply. Corn is experiencing the exact opposite. I mean, we're seeing a tightening, so that's why corn prices are increasing. Now, for our softs, that's cocoa and sugar. The prices of these commodities are increasing. Cocoa, we're seeing increased global demand, which is impacting positively on the price of cocoa, while sugar is due to technical factors. And we expect that, okay, for the rest of this week, these factors are likely to continue to play out for these commodities. But by time maybe like by March now, for instance, I talked about the interest rate hike. If we see that happen, we could see a change in the dynamics of these commodity prices, especially for oil.
Okay. All right. We'll keep watching. We see oil is doing quite well.
It's doing well. It's doing well. Yes. But, it's a double-edged sword for Nigeria. Yes. So on one hand, we benefit from higher oil prices. But then,
fuel prices.
Exactly.
All right, Damilola, we'll continue conversation on Thursday.
Yes, we will.
Damilola Kimbami, Head of Research, Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ladi.
All right. We'll take a moment now. Business Morning returns in a moment.